Well, good morning and welcome. We are continuing our study through the Sermon on the Mount. We're coming really to the end of what we call the Beatitudes. Actually, it's kind of like the epilogue of the Beatitudes, where he talks about how that our lives should have a kind of unique distinctness about them, that we should be like the salt of the earth, in the same way that salt gives distinction to food. So also he said we should be like that in the world. And secondly, we're to be the light of the world, which we're going to talk about today. But one of the things I promised you that I would bring a little bit of a couple of things to illustrate the point. What I have here actually is a rock. It looks like a rock, but actually it's just salt. This was a piece, and I actually in my office at the church I have a much larger piece about this big. But basically, what it is just crystallized salt that settles on the bottom of the lake, and you can reach down and pick up chunks this size, or sometimes you can find huge chunks that you can lift off the bottom. The other thing, when we talk today about the light of the world, I actually have two or three of these ancient lamps, oil lamps, and as you can see they have a little handle on them so that you could carry them, but you had a hole here where you'd pour the oil into it, and then you'd have a little bit of a linen rag in the end, and you would light that, and the oil would draw into the linen. The flame would draw the oil out of the pot into the linen, and then you would have a lamp. And this is where when he talks about neither do you put a lamp under a bowl. Why? So we have these 2 points that he makes. The first one, he says, you are the light of the world. And he says, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. If you go to Israel for some time, you'll see that you can be at just about any place around the Sea of Galilee at night. And if you look across the other side, you can see small villages and towns and cities, and the lights become apparent, and you realize that that's what he's talking about. There are some hills that run on both sides of the Sea of Galilee, and even in Jesus' day, you could stand on the seashore and see the lights. They couldn't be hidden. They stood out, obviously. You knew they were there. And he is simply saying that he has put us in the world to stand out, not to shrink back, not to meld in and become indistinguishable, not to be conformed to the world, but to live really distinct lives that may be considered odd or unique to some people, but they're lives that are based upon following Christ and fulfilling his desire and will in our life. The other thing was, he talked about taking a lamp like this, and he says you wouldn't put it under a bowl so it couldn't be seen, because not only would the lamp go out, the light go out, but it wouldn't be of any value. So in their homes of those days, they didn't have overhead lights. What they had was little shelves, niches that they put into the walls, and they would set their lamps on them, and that would illuminate the whole room. I mean, a whole family living in basically one room might have one lamp like this that illuminated the whole home. But that's the idea. It casts its light so that people can see each other, they can talk, they can communicate. Even in some cases with the scribes, that they would be able to read and write and fulfill that obligation as well. And so he says basically, in the very same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. That it's essential that we understand that our faith is not supposed to be a secret faith. And sometimes we can become so stealthily. I think years ago, my comment about the seeker-sensitive movement, how to be a seeker-sensitive Christian, was, it's kind of like Nacho baptizing his friends by stealth. I called it stealth Christianity. You sneak up on them and get them saved before they even know what happened to them. And sometimes we can be so subtle that nobody even gets it. Nobody can even see it. I really think that there is more to be said for a very forthright declaration of what I believe is a Christian. Because we're in a time and age where subtlety is not particularly respected or understood. Directness is the way people are communicating more and more. And I think that we need to be willing to make our faith distinct, to simply say to people that I believe that Jesus was born of a virgin. I believe that Jesus was resurrected the third day. I believe that my sins were cleansed by his death on the cross, that he is that sacrifice. I believe that Jesus is coming back. I believe there's a place called heaven and there's a place called hell. I believe that people who reject Christ will go into hell, and people who engage in certain lifestyles and sins, there's a consequence and a judgment, and they must repent of that. I find today that increasingly Christians are kind of drawing away from that because they don't want to come under the spotlight. They don't want to lose their job. They want to be criticized or whatever. But there comes a point where you're going to find that God is going to challenge you to step up in your faith and be bold and say what you believe. And what you find out is that many people have never heard these things, and they really respect somebody who speaks out freely and clearly and directly about the things of God. So, friends, let's pray about how we can more effectively let our light shine before men, that they can see that we are followers of Jesus Christ. So, God bless you. Go in His grace.